one of my number one priorities that I spend the first 60 to 90 minutes on, it's in the category of leadership.
The leader gets the result that they want by serving the people that are in their business, getting the things that they need for their life that they want to live.
My number one tip is what's important and what's not important.
You're able to execute on what it is you actually want, and then you actually start building self-identity, self-belief, that you can handle these hard things, and these things that were hard before are just normal routine.
If you can hone in on that 1 to 2 priorities, that's going to drive the needle on these other things that you're doing on a daily basis, then everything else lifts up.
Maybe you just do something slightly different, just slightly. Like you're not revolutionizing your life right now. It never lasts, never works. Just slow incremental progress, 0.1% every day, 36% at the end of the year. And in 10 years with compounding interest, you're just a different human being. Even if you're not the leader yourself, you still are a leader. You need to lead yourself. You can lead your leadership.
Where are you multitasking? Where are you just showing up and doing non-important tasks? I'm going to be the person that shows up with vitality. I'm going to be the person that does the uncomfortable things. It's time to perform.
The world rewards action, not intelligence. This is how you combine both. You can't be an absolute idiot and win, and you can't be an absolute genius and win. You can get lucky over short periods of time, but if you study anyone that's won anything over long periods of time, which is what we all really want, so the only thing you can really have control over is what happens over long periods of time, is action. You must have action. If I could choose between the two, intelligence and action, I would pick the action. But luckily, we're in a world where we don't have to choose. We can have both. And Sean is a massive action taker. I'm also a massive action taker. I take it differently. I love Sean's style, and I adopt it and I absorb, and it helps me do what I need to do. But we're different people, different minds, but we both love outcomes. We both have missions, visions. And so today we're going to jump into, how we've taken action to do the things that we've done, and where there's been pitfalls, the struggles, and hopefully you can pick up something today. My goal, if I was listening to this, where's my current action level at? Am I happy with it? If I took more action, where would I be? What would I be doing? Who would I become? What is it I'm currently after that I've not been getting? And how can I apply what I hear today into, for real, taking action? Because there's going to be some form of, and we'll get into it, there's reasons you're not, right? We're going to jump into those reasons and hopefully get you into that action mode, because action is the only thing that matters. It will get you what you want. And it's super exciting. Think about that for a minute. You can have whatever you want if you just keep taking the action. And yeah, let's get into it, because it's so important. We're going to talk about the fears, the reasons people don't. And so yeah, let's jump into it. Like, Sean, where would you start with let's start with someone, if you were to tell them, like, let's say they're currently not taking action, where would you start off with them?
I would break it down on asking them why they're not taking action. And obviously I've had people in my life, team members, friends, family, community, I've realized from 30,000 feet, I'm like, man, this person's not taking action. And it's foreign to me, because that's how I've been able to get into where I am today, whether that's simply going to church, plugging myself into the front row, starting a business, starting a podcast, doing these different things. I'm like, what's the separator here? Because dude, I'm just a dude from Conroe. Like, I'm a C student, barely made it by, had to build the relationships. Well, I actually took action to go to build the relationships, right? So action is so important, but action with that, I've always said, with the street smart is, man, it's a beautiful recipe, because I have failed so many different times, Ewan. And when you said that earlier, you kind of internally, I could tell you internally, is like, we're both massive action takers. We both have different approaches to taking action. I know my approach to taking action, which is like, let's do. But just for the listener's sake, like, can you break that down for us? Like what you mean, like how I take action? Because I think that'll kind of give some context, because people listening to this, I think they can resonate with you, and then they can resonate with, with me. So how would you break that down? I'll break it down for them as well.
Yeah. For you, what I've noticed, like when it comes to it, you don't. So I contrast it to myself. I love the research. I love to learn and the intricacies, because it helps me formulate patterns, because I'm very paranoid. Is for an outcome to occur, I have to get a fairly clear, and we'll get into clarity because there's a huge part of it, but I need to be clear. And that's what I'm always waiting for, is that moment of clarity. Not the complete picture perfectionism, but just enough clarity to see that's where the destination is. And then enjoyment for me is adding in the elements of getting good at something, learning, executing, and then getting better and better at it. I just love that. What I noticed about you is you'll just get the clarity and be like, within 5 minutes, you're just Google, like, what's the first thing I need? This. And you do it. Like, I'll buy it, or I just execute. If they said to do this, so I'm just going to go do that, like, immediately, which is it's a superpower, really, to be able to do that. A lot of people like to do the research, and get into it, just kind of weighing up, how will this be sustainable for me? Like, that's a lot of it too. Like, do I really actually want to, if I go all in, do I really want to do that? Right. So I'm always kind of gauging that element as well. But then there's the no action, right? Just continuously researching, or they don't even attempt to look. They just kind of continue to have that want. But, and that's the problem. They still want it, but it's not happening. That's hell. Yeah. That's hell on earth. Like, you're not doing anything about what it is that you want. You're not clawing to get after it. So to get back to you is, you just like, if I was to just describe it, in a nutshell, and it's a crude version of it. It's like, you just Google it within 5 minutes. You're like, oh, that's what we're doing. And then you go.
And here's the alternative, right? So there's three ways I look at it. So there's your way, which is why I think we work so well together, and why we've become such great friends, is because you have a different outside perspective of it that I learned from. Because the flip side of that is, somebody that's taking action, I've probably failed millions of times, trial and error, and I could have avoided a lot of those failures with your strategic ideation approach. Is this the best idea? Well, I don't know. Let me go find out. And so they're the ones that take the inaction. But you listening to this, it's like, okay, when you break these different down, you can sit here, in my mind, the way I look at it is like, your strategic approach is very healthy. But a lot of times what I have found in individuals is, when they take that approach, they get paralyzed. They don't take action because it's perilous. It's
just paralyzing. Oh, analysis paralysis. Yep.
Thank you. And so I have experienced that. I'm like, oh, they put, this business plan together, this 6-month business plan, 12-month business plan. I'm going to go write this book 4 years later, right? Or I'm going to go do this marathon or do this race. And so we don't end up doing it. Why? And so the flip side of that, one of the things that I've learned just in my own life is, I'm going to take action, but I'm going to fail. I'm going to go plug myself into a marathon, or an ultra, or a high rocks event, or start a business. I'm going to learn really quickly. And then along the way, I've learned over time in wisdom, oh, this is my superpower. I need to maybe learn from somebody like you, and that has that strategic approach. So I'm not failing so many times. But man, that is the fastest way that has gotten me to where I am today, whether it's fitness, whether that's health, spirituality. It's just failing forward, And so I'll share a quick little story here recently. One of the things that I just love is accountability. It's just one of the things that there's always room for improvement, of course, but I wrote out a social media post. I was like, Sean Accountability Myers, my middle name tattooed all over my body. Just love the word accountability, Ewan, because it should be tattooed all over our life. We should all be held to higher standards, especially at Level Up and Live.
Yeah.
And so this goes from everything from effort to, what we do on a daily basis, our routine, our different areas of life, and what we believe in. And so how you do one thing is how you do everything. Well, here recently at the insurance company, we had a leadership team meeting. We went over this team meeting, and in this team meeting, there was a lot of things that were covered. And we had made a decision on a couple of these things that had been lacking in the past, that weren't getting done on a weekly basis. And so I told the team, just like I always do, 1-3-1, I said, hey, look, here's the problem. Give me 3 different solutions and what we're going to be doing moving forward. And typically, if you're listening to this, what would somebody normally, how would they, and I didn't say, hey, this is the definition of done. This is when you're going to send it, right? When would somebody typically send that if they don't have a deadline? When would somebody just generically send that? When would you send it?
Man, it was random for everybody. I would send it. I would look at what my agenda is and be like, okay, I will do it then. Like I typically had to schedule that out.
So it could be a day, 24 hours, right? 48 hours, because there's no deadline. So here is the power of action taking, right? As soon as we get off that phone, there was 4 different things that needed to be done. This individual, because he took action, nobody was holding his hand. Nobody was micromanaging, because he took action. And this is how I live my life. He immediately broke down in Slack on exactly what he had done. He had made the phone call. He was able to solve the answer by making the phone call and also plugged himself into the next steps on figuring out to solve that problem all within 60 minutes. When I read that Slack message, because he took action versus delayed and waiting 2 or 3 days, because that never happens, this individual is that much closer on getting to where we need to go as a company and as a sales leader. In that moment, I was like, this is what action is all about, taking ground. Like I could have easily been paralyzed and analyzed and be like, well, he didn't say to send it then, what's the definition of done? Maybe I can take a couple days. No, I'm going to take action right now. I may not have all the answers and I'm going to get it figured out. And you're going to learn one way or another if you take action. But if you live your life like that, man, it's just a matter of time. But like you said, you continue to move that needle. You're going to learn. That's the key ingredient. I go sign up for a marathon. I'm going to learn real quick if I don't train for the next 8 weeks and go plug myself in a marathon, because it ain't forgiving. You're going to take that first 5 miles and go, what am I doing with my life? Well, guess what? You got to go back to the drawing board and what do I need to do to prepare for a marathon? I need to train. I need to hydrate. I need to do aerobic zone 2 training. Okay, well, let me put in that work so I can fail forward versus somebody going, I wish I could do a marathon, Ewan. I just don't know if I can. I don't know. Take action. Make it happen. Start that business. Run that marathon. Start that podcast. Mastermind group. Do it. And you're going to find out what's going to happen real quick. You got me riled up.
Yeah, I think that. Well, no, that's will tie that into why you're taking action so fast, like, right? Because you get into it, you love it, it's like that passion. And I think people go the other direction of you're looking forward to what's the outcomes, as opposed to, well, what could go wrong? How might this not work out? And people have a hard time living with the possibility of this isn't going to work out, the failure, and it stalls them out, right? And I think that's always. Why does anybody not take action? They know they want the outcome, so why do they not? Well, there's fear involved, and so you don't have that. And for me, let's say I do have fear. This is how I operate. I'm like, well, I don't want to have these fears happen, so I immediately figure out what's the minimum amount of information I need to make sure that doesn't happen. So I'll go research something, and then I'll go execute, and then I'll learn something from that, and I go back and I start researching again to figure out that piece of it, and then I go execute. So I go this back and forward, and I really, to me, everybody's personality is different. My brain just loves the process, like in digging into it and squeezing out the improvements of like the little things here and there. And I think I know because long term it will accelerate the outcome, which we get to the same place, but it's different methods. But yeah, I think a lot of people they'll freeze and not take that first step when they could. All they need is just enough confidence to take that first step. That would be one of my main go-tos is, whenever I really find myself not taking action, what am I afraid of? What elements am I missing? And man, I've been saying this a lot recently, and I've seen it around a few places, but just a skill gap. Everything is a skill gap. If you don't take action, it's because you're missing some form of skill. And maybe it's a soft skill, like where it's not like something you learn, like a technique, like hitting a tennis ball, but maybe it's a soft skill of what does it feel like to take action? I'm going to get used to this skill of getting uncomfortable, like you're saying, how you just jump right into it, and then you'll learn. Right? That's a skill. That's a skill gap if someone doesn't have that yet. So it's embracing that, walking into that, and doing that multiple times. So maybe you find an arena that's you can dip your toe in. If you're not ready to go all the way and dip a toe, but you have to have momentum, and that's a huge key. I don't know if we've talked about it a lot recently, but I know a lot of your success comes from the momentum that you've been able to build. Any failure that you might have, it's overshadowed and overcome by the momentum that you've got, because you don't stop. You don't slow down.
To me, life is about figuring out what's working and what's not working, whether it's a business or whether it's your personal life, like what's working in my life and what's not working. And so when I find out what's not working by taking action, that's the key ingredient. When you take action on what's working and what's not working, you just do more of what's working because it's aligned with who it is that I'm trying to become. And so I think the only way, to me, like there's only a couple ways to find that out, is you either like your approach where you're like, okay, I'm going to take massive action. I know who I want to become, and I'm going to go do some research. I'm going to go do some ideation. I'm going to go do some analyzing. And it may take you, a week or 2 weeks to start up that YouTube channel or start up that podcast, or maybe take you a month or 2 months, 3 months, whatever, right? But you're going to go do all the research. You're going to bring it back, and then you're going to take action on that. And then whereas me, I'm like, nope, I'm starting YouTube within 5 minutes. Like, let's go. I'm going to learn really quickly. But like you said, we're going to end up in the same path. And there's not one way. There's not one right way. But at the end of the day, the key ingredient is you're taking action. You're trying. You're plugging yourself in. And we talked about this behind the scenes. It's like one of the things that's so easy that is so hidden you in, especially with like, I've noticed with like intelligent people and just really smart individuals, is that a lot of times, they put this beautiful business plan together, the beautiful presentation, and they may do all these things behind the scenes that a smart individual would do, and then they never take action, and then they wonder why they pick their head up in 40 years. And sure, they may be a professor or a teacher or somebody that's doing what it is that they've been doing for that long, but the last 40 years they wanted to do 100 other things, but they never took action on it because to me, it's like they let their intelligence get in their way of the action of what it is that I'm going to be doing to get to where I want to go. I want to build that business. I want to start that podcast, but I never do it because I'm doing too much thinking. I'm doing too much analyzing. And so I think there's that slippery slope on, are you the person that's like borderline of like, man, I do analyzing. And then you find yourself 2 weeks from now going, oh, you know what? I haven't picked my head up. I went back to complacency or what I'm doing over here and avoided or neglected on what it is that I actually wanted to do that sparked up that aliveness 2 weeks ago. See, the guy that takes the action right then and there, you mentioned it earlier, he creates that momentum. And sure, I'm trial and error, and I'm failing along the way, but here's the North Star. And you mentioned this early in the episode, is it's all about that North Star and that clarity and that why. And so when you have that, then to me, that's what's going to allow you to keep coming back, putting one foot in front of the other. I mean, outside of that, if I don't have that North Star and why it is that I want to do this podcast or anything that I'm doing in my life, then what's the point? So to me, it's got to be worth coming back. And then, so I got a story I wanted to share with you real quick. If that's okay. Here recently, I was talking to an individual at the run club, and he had came up to me and it said, "Hey," I was like, "How you feeling, man? You got a marathon coming up. We're super excited about you. We're supporting you. We're here for you, And you could tell his body language, and he's like, "Yeah, I'm ready. I've been putting in the work, been putting in the training behind the scenes. He's been taking action." And I said, "All right, man." He goes, "Yeah, I might." I said, "You might what?" He goes, "I might veer off. I've been having a little bit of, I don't know if I can hit the mileage. I just don't know. 26.2 miles, man, that's a lot." I said, "Well, what are you trying to say?" He goes, "Well, I might veer off and do a half marathon." And this was 2 days before he towed the line marathon. Immediately my action taker in me, I'm like, "Look, man," I said, "you're taking action. You're you're doing things that 97% of the population is not doing, and you're doing that tomorrow. I don't care if you have to sit there and you walk up there tomorrow and it takes you 15 hours. It doesn't matter. You're the actual one taking the action." I said, "You picture your version of your 6 months from now. Are you going to regret that you veered off half a mile? Or are you going to regret the fact that you finished the race in 6 or 7 or 8 miles? Which version of you is going to like the other version, the 10.0 version of you?" And right then and there, in that moment, that kind of action, that kind of accountability, and that empowerment is what you need in your life, I believe, right? In order to take that action, because it's that iron sharpens iron. This guy was able to end up finishing the entire marathon. And I was just so proud of him. I sent him a text message. I said, "Man, because if you took that action, you reframed your mindset. I don't care how long it took you, but you've crossed that finish line. Your family saw that. Your kids saw that. Your community saw that. And you're going to be able to look back on that the rest of your life and be so grateful that you took action when the other version of you didn't want to take action and finish that other half of the marathon." Which version of you is going to be grateful for the version that did what you said you were going to do by taking action? I don't care how long it takes, but you did anyways. Same thing with building a business, Ewan. Same thing with building a YouTube channel. Same thing with building a podcast. I don't care how long it's going to take. Here's the thing. I'm going to take action. I'm going to learn from it. It's just data. I'm going to learn as I go. I'm going to be that much older anyways. He's going to be that much older when he runs the marathon anyways, right? So that's the key ingredient to me, is like taking action. Hey, we're all going to be 40, 50, 60, God willing, right? So we might as well take action in the process versus being paralyzed and not taking action, which version of you is going to get to where you want to go? Anyways.
If you were to decipher, what was holding him, what was making him want to do that half, like maybe kind of scaling it back. Obviously there's something behind it. There's a fear perhaps. Like, could you pick up by talking to him what maybe was holding him, like saying that to himself? Like, what was his fear?
Yeah. So what I received and how I received it was there was a lack of accountability. There was a lack of accountability. Maybe didn't. There was this is the way I received it. I'm just paraphrasing to a certain degree. Is there was a lack of, can I do this? Can I do that 26.2 miles? I don't know. There's a lot of self-talk, right? A lot of self-doubt. Man, my toe hurt 2 weeks ago, or my hip hurt. You see, we start making I call them excuses.
The brain will
justifying limiting beliefs. It's not just a marathon with him. It could be anybody listening to this, starting that business, starting that podcast. We justify, you know what? I'm going through a rough patch right now. I want to lose a few pounds before I do this. Or you know what? No, I'm going to make sure my bank account has $10,000 in it before I do this. To me, those are all stories, and limiting beliefs, right? It's like my toe hurts. I don't know if I can finish this full marathon. Maybe, right? You go out there and you take action, you're going to find out really quickly. And so to me, it was in that moment when that man had that conversation with me, brought it up to me. It was that self-doubt, that limiting belief, Ewan, that we all as human beings tell each other, or tell ourselves internally, myself included. We all have this different baseline. You know this. We all have this different baseline. Well, if you find yourself not taking action, right, it's typically for those couple of reasons. It's, maybe fear, maybe because the limiting beliefs or the self-doubt. So the key ingredient here is, guess what that man did with me? He brought it up to me. It was almost like a coaching therapy session. He had somebody believe in him.
He needed you to have his back.
And see, and that's what I believe in. That's my passion that's what we all need. We all need that accountability. We all need that community where we all come together. We have that support, that guidance. And that's why we've created the Level Up Live community. And so because it's not if, but when you raise that baseline and you have moments like that you need somebody that's going to say, hey man, you got this. You're going to be okay.
Yeah. I'm so glad he came Saturday to have that conversation with you. Because he might have just talked himself out of the full thing and done the half because no one was there to get him out of his own head. Because he ended up completing it. That's the crazy part. Look at what happened. He did complete it and he got a good time. And your conversation, the impact of that, he did it. So all the stories beforehand were clearly stories because he did.
Yeah, finish. Amen. And then the alternative flip side of that is, I guess it was probably about 6 months ago. I had another individual. I challenged him. I empowered him. I said, hey, have you signed up for a 10K? He goes, nope, I've done a 5K. I said, okay, well, do something, get comfortable getting uncomfortable this year. What can you sign up for? Oh, I'm going to do a 10K. He signed up for a 10K, let the entire office know. And we were all supporting him, cheering him on. Saturday rolls around. And next thing you know, me and Kendra are going up there Saturday here in Conroe. We roll up there. We're going to be excited. We got the phones out. We're taking pictures and videos. And next thing we know, we're like, where's this dude at? We don't see him. So I'm calling him like, hey, I don't see you, man. And he didn't answer. So I text him and say, call me because we're here and it's kind of cold outside and we're sitting on the street for the last 45 minutes and we haven't spotted you. We wanted to surprise you. And then come to find out, Ewan, he called and he said, I'm already done. I said, you're already done? I said, that's weird. The people on the 10K, they're still running. And he goes, yeah, I decided to go the 5K. I decided to cut it off. So I had to gather my emotions, right? Because I take responsibility for this kind of stuff. This is what God, this stuff is like, I feel like I just love, this is kind of like where I shine. I don't like to see people do the things that they say they're going to do. They're going to do, right? And this person meant a lot to me. I was like, and so we dove into it, and this individual. And so it's just instances like that because he didn't know we were going to be there. He didn't have, his family or he didn't have anybody there. He didn't talk to anybody about it. He just showed up because he thought he had the willpower. He had the discipline to do it, and he was going to do it because he was empowered to do it. But then because there was no accountability, whether it's to yourself or having somebody there support you. That's why support is so important with taking action. Because we all fall short of our goals, myself included, and I get knocked down. But the only way that's gotten me to where I need to go and where I want to go is because I have support like you. I have support like our community and my wife that's able to pick me up and hold me accountable to higher standards and raise that baseline. And so I think it's so important to make sure that you're surrounding yourself with not only that accountability group, but that community, plugging yourself in and taking action outside of that. Ewan, what are your thoughts?
And you think about now that has happened and that has passed, for him, and he's got that experience and that feedback, that information, and now he knows what he needs to do to execute on the 10K. So a lot of people could see that as a failure. The only way it's a failure is if he doesn't go back and finish
that's
what he set out to do, and that's because that will happen to a lot of folk. I think that's the problem, right? So, last time I tried, it didn't work. And so now that's in the memory banks, and you have to erase that by saying, I refuse to, it's okay to fail. It's okay what he did, right? Because that's what we do as human beings. We don't follow through a lot. But that's how we learn. And so it's okay, where's the next 10K that I can go and tell my identity, this is who you are, not that guy, right? And so, but if he doesn't, he's going to sit with that, and that's going to be his identity in the back of his mind always. Hey, happened before, could happen again. And so what's the point even trying then? What's the point even taking more action? So you have to break the cycle, the habit of not taking action. It's a skill gap.
How do you break that down? You and somebody listening to this are like, yeah, man, I tried and I failed, and I've done it. And it just seems like that's just I'm a repeat offender. And I'm complacent. I'm stuck in my ways. Like I just feel like I'm on the cog. I feel like I'm on the rat race. I'm doing the same thing over and I'm not experiencing different results. I'm taking action every here and again, but I'm missing that skill gap on doing the things that you're saying, Ewan. What's one tip that you would leave somebody that you're talking to about?
Man, if you'd asked me a month ago, it would have been a different answer. But here's the first thing I would tell people to do is to grab a pen and a piece of paper and write down your fear. Say these words: I don't want to do X. I don't want to run the 10K. I'm afraid of doing the half marathon, or I'm afraid of doing the full marathon, and I'm thinking about doing the half. And I've got my toe hurts. And then ask the question, is this true? Is this really true? Or is there something else behind it? What might a fear be that I'm trying to protect myself from? And so really what I'm saying here is journal, man, getting stuff out your head. Like because not taking action, there's a fear. There's always a fear. And I heard this as well. It's not afraid of failure. It's afraid of people seeing you fail.
Really?
So imagine you tell yourself, I'm going to go do a 10K, no big deal. But then you say, I'm signing up for a 10K, a bunch of people are going to be there. All these doubts, all these fears, people are going to see me not like, well, what happens if I don't complete it? The fear, the doubts, let me protect myself too much. I'm going to back out. No action.
Yeah.
Right. And so if you think about that, none of it's true. It's all a story inside the head. So getting out the head and onto paper, man, I'm telling you, this is so powerful. Being able to journal, write out, your current situation. Like, what are you thinking? Why are you not doing these things? And really get to the bottom of it. I've done this for many years. If there's a tough customer, human being, I'm like, man, I don't know how to approach this. I don't know how I'm going to win this sale. Like, there's $100,000 deal on the line. This person does not want to see me. Maybe I could just go grab a coffee now and I'll come back tomorrow, or I'll figure out something else in the future. I would take out a pen and paper and be like, I don't want to go see them right now because I'm afraid of, and I'd have to stop because I don't know what I'm afraid of. What am I afraid of? Most people will stop right there too. If they were to ask them, what are you afraid of? They don't know. They just have the fear, and it's stuck, trapped inside their head, and it feels like a bear's about to cut their throat. So it's like avoid at all costs. So you write it down. Well, I don't want to do the full marathon because, if I don't, I'll let people down. I'll be an embarrassment. People will not respect me anymore. And then you ask yourself, are those things true? Who am I going to embarrass? What if I don't fail, will it be the worst thing in the world? Who would I be if I didn't complete it? The worst case scenario. Can I handle that? Write it down. Of course you can handle it. Yeah, I can. What would I do if I don't make it? I can't. What could I do? What would be some follow-up steps? Well, I could train harder and do another marathon. You know what? I'm just going to do this one. I'm just going to go do the full thing. Yeah. You're already done. Like in my mind, just saying, I don't know if you feel that. I don't know if it's translating, but when I do that, I write out, and here's what I noticed about myself. I'll avoid writing down sometimes because I know I'm going to take the action if I write it down. And so I'm like, oh, I'm not ready for that yet. But I've trained myself like, this is it's an indicator. This is big. This is real. This is something that's important. And what happens at the end of those things? Awesomeness. Like, I'm going to have more finances. I'm going to be in better shape. I'm going to be proud of myself for executing on this fitness competition, whatever. And so avoidant behavior, I'm really honing in on that. Like you see people avoid all the time. We just talked about texts, people avoiding texting people, right? It's the same stuff. Because we don't want to disappoint. We don't want to have that fear, that feeling in the body. Like it's either in your stomachs, in your chest, it's in your throat. If you can really analyze, write down your fears and really sit and meditate and figure out, I got this fear. Where is it showing up in my body? That's a skill, being able to tell, man, it's showing up right in my throat. So for me, a lot of time, my fear is in right in my solar plexus, in my chest. And I just get out of my head and realize, just what does it feel like? Oh, it feels kind of, and that's all it is, just a feeling. Now I'm going to go execute because it's not real. It's not in my head. It's just a feeling in my body that's been produced. Same thing with writing it down. If people, that would be nowadays, that would be the first thing I would walk them through that. Like, let's really ask the questions. And it's very powerful because then it's no longer staring it down. The dragon is gone. You think it's a big dragon about to rip your head off. You start writing it down and you realize, oh, it's just a mouse. And I can handle a mouse. And that's all it ever is. All it ever is a mouse.
So somebody that's listening to this and I'm listening to you, I'm like, oh man, I got to go get a pen and paper. I got to write this down. Is there an alternative option that you have, Ewan? Is there another route? It sounds like this works for you, but man, that just seems like that's not going to work for me.
I would say try. I would definitely recommend, because the alternative is it's still going to be stuck in your head. The alternative is talk to someone about it. That's right what I would say. The only alternative is you're going to sit on your own and avoid and procrastinate. Yep. And at some point, maybe muster. Maybe you will, but maybe you won't. And here's the thing. It's going to take time to get there. And one thing we know in business and in relationship and fitness, momentum. Like if you don't take those fast decisions, it wrecks all motivation. Because there's too much time, the magic's gone, the dopamine's out. And so you got to avoid that at all costs. And so it's just you just dip and toe in the water. That's really like the key, I think, for people who are not used to it yet. How do you get good at anything? You just kind of dabble, momentum, build a little bit of confidence here. And then you're going to get into that discomfort zone and build a little bit of confidence there. And it just is a process. It's a skill gap, which is beautiful for everyone to hear, right? Like, it's a skill. It's just, you're just lacking the ability right now, and you can figure out the pieces and gain the skill. And then you can be that person and embody it. And over long periods of time, really short periods of time, you're going to see exponential results because action builds confidence. It builds experience. It builds certainty. And that's most of the time, that's what we're afraid of, right? I'm afraid of the uncertainty. What will happen? I don't finish the marathon. What's everyone going to think? What? I don't know. The brain goes into panic mode. Man, I heard this a long time ago, and my kids know this. I say, you don't never say what if. You say even if. Yes. Even if this happens, I'm going to do this. Even if that happens, I'll be able to X. It's always an out. What if is just a dead end of panic. Like, well, what if that would be tragic? Oh, well, now I'm done. Toast. Well, even if that does happen, I'm going to X. Even if it happens, I'm going to do that. And it gives you a forward thinking. I've got a backup plan. I've got some form of certainty, and I think that's what most people are missing. And it's not like I'm some pro. I still deal with it all the time. Like I have to rely on these techniques because I'm very emotional, I'm a sensitive person, but I must get my results. I want my action. I want my life that I want, so if I'm going to get them, I've got to pursue, and it's going to take, effort, energy, and skill. Right. I'm always building my skills. And it's crazy because there's things that I'll do without even thinking now, like just totally normal. If someone was to hear it and I was to ask them to do it today, they would be petrified to do those things. And I was at some point, but now it's like, oh, I didn't even realize that was a thing to be upset about or worried or fear. Like it's just normal now. It's just normal. And that's everything, right? Like, and there's things I'm afraid of right now, but I know now it will be normal at some point. I look forward to that day.
Man, pure gold, man. And then also just for a test, like you are applying these things. You're a student of the game. So you're
every day, dude.
Exactly. Everything that you've applied, and for the listeners, like I'm watching it, I'm a witness to it. Like you're applying it in your life, so you're just sharing that with our audience and equipping them as well. And it's like you said, this too shall pass. And it's like the baseline continues to raise because of you putting forth the effort in the things that you're doing on taking action. You're learning. You're going out. You're taking what you learned back to whether it's podcast, reading, listening to a podcast, or applying it in real world. I think I read a statistic the other day, and I shared this in the Level Up Live community that in the beta testing that 70% of us actually learn from doing. Ewan, actually learn from hands-on doing. talking through a
Totally.
podcast, running a marathon, starting a business. So if the statistics, they don't lie. They're there. And so if that's true, then that just means to go out and do. And so take some of these. Go ahead.
Man, I was going to ask you real quick. Do you remember the first time the amount that you invested in crypto?
The amount that I grew.
Your first dollar amount?
Dude, okay. So you want to hear something funny? Bro, okay. So once I just need like 2 or 3 people. This is where accountability helps for me. So once I talked to you, and then once I was listening to people that had actually been in the space for 2012, I got curious. Once I heard what they were doing, I was just like, all right, you know what? I'm going to pour in, I think it was like $500 a month, or no, I'm sorry. It was $1,000 a month that I was going to pour into. And at that time, like this was a few years ago, like it was almost a speculation, if you ask some people, it's a speculation, but I was just like, I got to take action. And guess what? Am I glad I did? Yes, I am.
Amen. And what's funny is I remember like putting in my first 1,000, I'm like petrified. I'm like, I'm just burning money here because I didn't know what I was doing. It was uncertainty. And now it could be 10, 25, 50. And it's like, I know what I'm doing. I'm certain. Right. Like, and so that to me is a really great way to understand. Well, we dipped the toe in at 1,000 and we're afraid, but I know today you wouldn't, if you know what you're doing now, right? There's certainty behind it. I know where this is going. I know the future. Of course, there's still speculation involved, but there's always risk, right? But to drop 25 grand or 50K, if you've weighed it up, no fear. I'm aware of the outcomes, I'm aware of the consequences, and so I'm not afraid anymore. But we could probably go do something else and put that 1,000 in something else that we don't understand or know. We might be like, well, okay, I'm having to hesitate for a minute. But at some point, you'd be as comfortable putting in 50K once you knew what it was, right? Because you put your money where your mouth is, literally, right?
Love
like it's a great way to indicate that you're progressing in taking action. Because once you do that 1,000, didn't kill me. I could put 5 grand in. No, it didn't kill me. 10, no, it didn't kill me. And you might lose money, right? You might lose, but what did you learn? Right. Well, I learned this, and now I'm going to get better at doing what I'm doing.
It's freaking brilliant, man. It always comes back to like just reinvesting back in yourself. And I think there's a lot to play with that, right? It's like given some of these actionable strategies that we've given today, but to me, it's like that's the catalyst. It's like surround yourself with 1 or 2 other people that you can talk this through, hold yourself accountable, join a community, listen to podcasts like this where you're like, you know what? I remember, I'll never forget, man. I won't say his name just for private purposes, but he reached out to us like, I guess it was about 18 months ago. And so and we'll wrap up because we're a little over on time. He sent me a text, and he's out of the blue. I remember this. And he's like, hey man, I just want to let you know that I've been listening to you and Ewan on the Level Up and Live podcast, and I really enjoy what you guys are doing. I mean, he spelled this long text message out. It wasn't like just 1 or 2 these 2 sentences. And so I'm reading this entire text message, and I'm sitting here thinking to myself, I'm like, there's one thing that I'm thinking about. And in this while I'm reading this text message, at the very end, he goes, because of y'all's podcast, he goes, I took action on something that I've always wanted to do. And I said, or that I kept reading, and it said, what I've always wanted to do is start my own business, start my own inspection company. And I did that because you guys inspired me to take action. It was in that moment. And now fast forward 18 months later, I've been working with this. I've been talking to this individual and kind of giving him some pointers and some guidance and plugging him in. And he says, business is blowing up. God is good. He's doing great. And he's off to the races, right? All because he decided to take action 18 months ago. Now, has it always been rainbows and sunshines? Absolutely not. But guess what he's done? He's plugged himself in. He's asked questions. He's gotten curious. And he's listened to the podcast. And he's held himself to higher standards, and he's raised that baseline over time. And now he's building something for himself and for his family. And I just think everybody listening to this has the power to do that, Maybe it's not starting a business, but maybe it's starting to work out, creating a morning routine, designing the life that you want to live. And if you need assistance with that, we at Level Up and Live, we have a community for that. Reach out to us, DM us, drop us in the comment, and let us know what you're experiencing or struggling with that you're not taking action in. And me and Ewan would love to just pour into that, whether it was an episode, whether it was a direct message. But outside of that, man, wrapping things up, Ewan, you got any final thoughts?
Quit being smart and just take action. or do both.
Amen. There you hear it from the man himself, the man, the myth, the legend, Ewan Heinemeier, baby. Well, thanks so much for listening to the episode today. We greatly appreciate your time. We went a little over, so hopefully you've made it all the way through. Outside of that, make sure you share this with somebody that may be in action taker, or somebody that struggles with taking action right away, that has that they're analyzed, or they're paralyzed. Analysis. Did I say that right, Ewan? Analysis paralysis. I'll get that right. Kind of tricky to say. But outside of that, we're grateful for your time, and leave us a Google review on podcasts, Spotify, and level up and live.
Level up and live.